Anton Krieger here. This episode of All Things Green is brought to you by NextGen Clean Energy Solutions, your sustainability easy button from concept to completion. Welcome to All Things Green. I'm Anton, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. Anna Zaremba works for the City of Cleveland as a nature-based solutions sustainability manager and specializes in climate resiliency. Anna, thank you very much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So you graduated from Dickinson College in Pennsylvania in 2020, and since then, you've made it all the way to the Mayor's Office of Sustainability here in Cleveland. Tell me briefly about your path to power.
Well, I graduated with a degree in environmental studies and a certificate in food studies, and was really passionate at that point in sustainable agriculture. But recently, had been able to dig into some of the policy-making processes of the city that I was based in college. And so wanted to keep exploring that when I moved back to Cleveland, where I'm from. So I was able to intern with Cleveland Neighborhood Progress, work
cool.
with the Cuyahoga County, and then work in consulting before landing at the Mayor's Office of Sustainability.
That is super. You are the manager of nature-based solutions. What does that mean to you? What is nature-based solutions?
So how we like to think about nature-based solutions is everything natural systems related, and improving natural systems and ecosystems to see benefits to the planet, to people, and as a way to address climate change in terms of mitigating climate change and then also adapting to climate change. So we can increase ecosystem health to help us adapt to climate change hazards, but then also use them as a way to sequester carbon in the atmosphere and address climate change.
Kind of like feeding two birds with one seed scenario. We're like sequestering carbon in some cases by planting a tree. We're also helping wildlife and birds and insects by planting those trees.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the community members in Cleveland get to see those benefits too.
What are some of those benefits?
Yeah, so I guess if we were to talk about a situation where we are planting more trees in a neighborhood that's experienced a lot of flooding, or extreme heat or poor air quality, we could see those trees be a barrier and absorb pollution in the air, as well as absorb stormwater from flooding events and heavy rainfall, and then also increase the shade that we have, and then through evapotranspiration.
Yeah, I think that's the word.
Create a cooler environment overall too. So community members get to see that through fewer flooding events in their neighborhoods and in their streets, and cooler neighborhoods, especially if you don't have access to air conditioning, and then healthier air. And that's especially important in Cleveland because we do see a lot of asthma cases and heart issues and complications that can result or be exacerbated by poor air quality.
Yeah. And planting trees is just one of many ways that we're offering nature-based solutions in Cleveland, right? I mean, when we were talking in the green room, it sounds like sustainability is very interdisciplinary. Can you maybe talk briefly about some of the other things that you work on in the mayor's office, maybe circular economy, transportation, things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I have really wonderful coworkers who work on a number of different types of projects. We definitely look at climate justice and environmental justice as a really core principle of our work, and using climate change and being able to address climate change and adapt to it as kind of like the North Star of our strategy. But that looks like a lot of different things in our office. And so, some of that involves like the energy systems where we're sourcing our energy from in Cleveland.
Wow.
And where the buildings that we have in Cleveland are getting that energy from. Some of it looks like transportation, which spans across a lot of different departments as well. in terms of how we're creating safer, streets for biking and different types of transportation, but then also looking at like electric vehicle charging. And then, broadly the circular economy principles that a coworker is working on touch all of those different things in terms of creating an economy that, is built to create less waste overall and be less linear like our current economy is, where we're taking resources, we're making things, and then we're wasting them, ultimately not fully valuing the resources that we have. And so that touches on all of the work that we do in terms of creating an economic system that is better for the planet and better for people as well. And then under nature-based solutions, that looks like a lot of things too, in terms of supporting Cleveland's tree canopy and increasing the tree canopy, as well as supporting our soil health, addressing, climate hazards through creating more green spaces with better quality and more vegetation that can be more absorbent and offer those benefits to the people that live in Cleveland.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Tell me about the impact that climate change has on Cleveland. On the show, we've talked in the past about severe droughts in some countries. We talk about even hurricanes in the Louisiana, Texas, Florida areas. But how does Cleveland, Ohio see the impacts of climate change?
Yeah, and it's definitely, it looks a little bit different in Cleveland than if we were to look at the Southwest or fires that are happening along the, coast in the West. But we're certainly feeling the impacts of climate change here too in Cleveland, even though it is in the Midwest and it is a Great Lakes city. One thing that we've recently done to kind of dig into what those impacts look, over the past couple years is creating a climate risk and vulnerability assessment, where we've dug into data that's available and then also talked to stakeholders and community members to see what they're actually feeling and what their priorities are. And so some of the top things that kind of came out of that are looking at poor air quality days. So we're seeing the impacts from wildfires that aren't even in Cleveland.
Right.
So, places from all across the country and out of the country, like Canada, impacting Cleveland through wildfire smoke, and then also increasing ozone that really loves these high heat days, resulting in air quality that is getting worse and worse. I know that we saw a really clear example of that last summer in June, where we had one of the worst air quality days on record. That was really visible. Really hazy out. But then we're also seeing, extreme heat days, more extreme heat waves. So having high heat days for a longer period of time that are really hard for people to adjust to and hard to plan for. Yeah. And then also looking at these extreme precipitation events where we're having more rainfall, fall during storms than normal, than are harder to prepare for. So they're more likely to cause flooding, more likely to cause damage, and having those flooding events can definitely impact how people are traveling, can impact our water quality as well. And then eventually, one concern with that is leading to unhealthier environments for people if we're looking at the possibility of mold growth in homes. So those are just a couple of ways that Cleveland is seeing the impacts of climate change. Definitely also want to consider Lake Erie. We had one of the lowest lake ice quantities this past winter that we've had in a long time. So
I definitely noticed that. I mean, I think my dad talks about being able to drive across the lake at some point, when he was younger, like Marblehead to Kelly's Island or something, do some ice fishing, right?
Yeah.
But we weren't able to do that this past winter.
Yeah, and it can be appealing having warmer weather in Cleveland, especially if we're used to really brutal winters. But that lake ice is really important for keeping the habitats in Lake Erie healthy, and then also making sure to keep everything else regulated too. So we're seeing in Cleveland, we're seeing warmer, wetter, and wilder weather events.
Wow. So when you go into the community and talk to residents, you ask them about their priorities or what they're experiencing as a result of these, the climate change. What's the methodology? How do you go into a community, or is that something that the office is working on right now?
Yeah, that's something that the Mayor's Office of Sustainability has done for a long time. And more recently, what I've been able to be involved in is
Super.
some community meetings in locations that we worked with local organizations to help pick out and have conversations about what neighborhoods, what people were being impacted by different types of climate change hazards like extreme heat and poor air quality. And so that was kind of the result of that, what we've come up with so far.
Yeah.
But certainly are hoping to dig into that a little bit more as we continue with our climate action plan. That was just one small piece of the puzzle, and I think a really important piece of the climate action planning process that we're going through, as well as the project planning process in general, is being able to incorporate community feedback and priorities.
That's really cool. So the climate action plan, that sounds like a heavy lift. I mean, we're talking about giving a city direction of how to move forward for the next however many years to make sure that climate change isn't going to destroy our infrastructure and keep our people safe. What was it like working on this climate action plan?
Yeah, I think it's been a lovely process so far.
Okay, lovely.
It's been a really great learning opportunity.
Okay.
My coworker, our decarbonization strategist, Tim Kovac, is really the mastermind behind all of that, and so he is leading the charge with the climate action planning process. But it's been really exciting to be involved to really dig into how climate change is impacting Cleveland and might impact Cleveland in the future. And then to look at that through a nature-based solutions lens and be able to speak with many different stakeholders so far to see what their thoughts are in terms of what priorities should be in the future for that. So that'll, be an ongoing process until the fall. We're really focusing on digging into that during the summer.
That sounds awesome. Tell me a little bit about the partnerships with these organizations that maybe you've worked with to create the climate action plan, or maybe there's an ongoing relationship and discovery for some of these climate issues.
Yeah, certainly my office couldn't do that alone, especially for the entirety of the Cleveland community.
Yeah.
So relying on the partnerships that we have is incredibly important. That my office has worked on, some planning with NOACA, the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency.
It's a mouthful.
And we'll continue to do that with the different phases of the grant funding that we've gotten for this climate action plan, to make sure that they all overlap, all the different local climate action planning efforts region-wide, and then also looking at the city of Cleveland. But an important part of being able to form the climate action plan has been working with different stakeholders from internal departments with the city, and then other outside stakeholders too, including utilities, businesses, community organizations that prioritize environmental justice. So casting a wide net to make sure that we'll have a more effective plan overall.
I love that because a city doesn't necessarily do every single thing in the day-to-day, right? So being able to talk to NOACA and say, hey, you have municipalities and communities that affect the river that runs through Cleveland, and also talking to like Soil and Water Conservation District and say, hey, you guys are the ones boots on the ground doing these inspections for your stormwater. And then having your office kind of lead the charge, setting up the plan and wrangling cats, maybe in some cases, bringing all these organizations together to make it all work. I think that's a really cool job that you have.
Yeah, it's been really, really valuable with the nature-based solutions working group that we've been or that I've been working with different stakeholders who are involved in the nature-based solutions world or who are interested in providing some input there. That has been rewarding to hear about their thoughts on what should be a priority with the climate action plan, and I'm excited to keep that going with the rest of the Cleveland communities.
Yeah. I wanted to talk a little bit about something that we talked about in the green room, the USDA composting grant. Anna, what is the city of Cleveland doing with a composting grant? Why does Cleveland need compost?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about that. We received funding to establish with our other partner organizations a residential composting pilot program and workforce development program. That's all kind of smushed together under this 2-year grant. And so this will look like working with Rust Belt Riders, Riddle Green Partnership, and the Solid Waste District, as well as Ohio Means Jobs, to create a residential composting pilot program and expand Rust Belt Riders operations so that more communities have access to compost drop-off locations, as well as including scholarships for people who are SNAP eligible and may not be able to afford the fee that it would take to be a member to this program. And then also creating a workforce development opportunity there too, to try and grow the workforce around composting and really scale those operations. So, we can give people who are interested an opportunity to, have a pipeline career that'll grow into something bigger, but then also you focus on creating more with food waste in Cleveland that would otherwise just be landfilled. So exciting that we get to, reduce greenhouse gas emissions coming from the landfill from food waste through this program and be able to divert food waste into something that'll ultimately be more productive. That end of life compost that's created, once it's finished, will be put back into Cleveland communities through community gardens, other food producers that are in Cleveland. And so they'll be provided with this new resource to help their soil and help them, grow food for Cleveland communities and beyond. So it's a very full circle kind of operation. And I'm super excited to be working with these partners on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing, talking about circular economy and ultimately going back to these community gardens, local farm organizations, Ohio City Farms, like just down the road from us also. And I wanted to ask, if you could wave your magic wand and say, if I could do this overnight, correct this one policy or make this one thing happen in Cleveland, what would it be? It's a thinker.
Yeah, it's hard to narrow down to one thing. Well, I'd love to be able to fund as much urban forestry work as possible and expand their capacity as much as possible. I'm excited that there has been a lot of funding that's become available in the country for prioritizing cities and they're increasing their tree canopy. And I'd love to see that for Cleveland too. I know that's been long work in progress, being able to expand our tree canopy. But my dream would be to be able to locate as many impervious surfaces like concrete and asphalt that are not absorbent and don't let water through. And remove all of the impervious surfaces that are unnecessary, and then plant, depending on the location, as many trees with as much room as they need to grow as possible. I think that's the big focus is the right tree in the right place. So giving trees enough room to grow and thrive and enough soil space to grow and thrive, and choosing the right tree for each location, but being able to really target the spaces that don't need to have concrete and asphalt on them, and could be a more productive place for vegetation. That would be the dream.
Anna, I'm a tree nerd. Are you a tree nerd, Anna?
I am now.
You are now?
Yeah, for sure.
I know that in the city of Cleveland, we come up with a lot of maybe opposition with residents about planting trees. Some residents, they don't want trees in their front yard. They're saying it's going to affect my pipes, it's going to break up my sidewalk. But what you just presented is a very thoughtful approach to saying we have a diagnostic way to say this type of tree or shrub goes here. It can be productive and it won't interfere with the gray infrastructure. In fact, it can maybe even help out and act as infrastructure, right? Providing shade, providing cooling, things like that. Do you have any trees in particular that you would maybe tell a resident that they can plant in their tree lawn, or is there a program for that in Cleveland?
Like a specific species or?
Perhaps a specific species, yeah.
Gotcha. I don't know if I could come up with one specific species off the top of my head, because I know really prioritize diversity in tree planting too, because if you have one street with, and I think of in the public right of way, since I'm with the city, but if we are looking at like one street that has only one type of tree that's planted, if there's a disease or if they're susceptible to some type of I guess like
fungus or pest or something.
Yeah, some pest, they could all just go at once, and then you're left without an amazing resource. So I think the species diversity is a really huge part of that. But then also going back to what you said, trees are infrastructure. They're a valuable piece of infrastructure for communities. And I think that if people are concerned about having a tree create damage to their property, that's certainly a valid one. But definitely one that, in the bigger picture, ideally, we would have trees for everyone who would like them, and then be able to use our space that is underutilized a little bit better.
Well, Anna, I wanted to wrap up, and as a fellow young person in the sustainability sphere, how would you tell another young person that there's hope? We're met with a lot of like doom and gloom when it comes to the climate science, climate change, and things like that. How would you tell a young person, there's hope, there's a way forward? Do you have any advice that you would give a young person that's maybe in a rut of negativity?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to have a community of people who are also working towards shared goals, even if you are very different or working in different spaces. I think you don't need to have like sustainability in your title in order to have a sustainability related job, or one that you could work towards addressing climate change with. There are a lot of positions out there that are equally as relevant, whether they're like providing social support for people or working in finance. I think there's quite a bit of overlap. Any job could really be a sustainability, climate focused job. But definitely finding a community of people. And I'm inspired every single day working with community partners and other people throughout the city who are also really passionate about addressing climate change and making sure that we can bring benefits to the people who live and work in Cleveland through those solutions, climate solutions that we're trying to work towards.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I really like the way that you worded that. Anna, we are running short on time. I wanted to give you the opportunity to plug anybody you'd like to plug here on the podcast. Mom, Dad, anybody who you want.
Yeah, I definitely want to thank my director, Sarah, and assistant director, Anton, and the rest of my coworkers, as well as all the really phenomenal partners that we've been able to work with through our climate action planning process and with other projects.
Super. Anna, thank you so much for talking all things green with me. I'm going to let our viewers know how they can stay in touch with us. If you'd like to stay connected with the show, be sure to follow us on TikTok at ATG Show. And if you'd like to rewatch full episodes, check out our YouTube channel, All Things Green Show. You can find all of our sources from today's episode in our show notes. All Things Green will be back soon. Thank you so much for being a part of the global sustainability movement.